Hey guys, Bella here, and this video is going to be about how I finally got diagnosed with ADHD, age 29 as a woman, and I'm going to be sharing basically a 3-act play about my ADHD and how I struggled with it throughout my life, how I finally found a physician to treat me and medicate me for it, and how I'm doing now while on the medication. And if you've been following this channel for any amount of time, you are probably not surprised about the ADHD thing. I actually get a lot of comments of people asking me, are you still doing this? Or do you still run this business or that? And I always feel bad because I'm like, I don't even know what they're talking about. I'm constantly jumping from one thing to the next. Even with hobbies in my life, it's like I become hyper focused and then I completely want nothing to do with it. So I've pretty much always felt this way throughout my life, and I thought it was just a personality quirk, but as it turns out, I have a little bit more going on than that. I'm sharing my story today because I feel like as women, we are often misdiagnosed, especially with depression and anxiety. And that's what I thought that I had for the last 10 years. And that's why I've been trying those kind of medications and they just never worked for me. And it was a special moment of clarity when my current doctor told me, yeah, the reason that none of those work for you is because they're not treating the underlying cause of your ADHD. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense because I don't really ever feel super depressed. It just feels like I don't have the energy to do life. Normal life things feel exhausting to me, and I've never been able to participate in things that I wasn't interested in. Like, I'm not able to fake being interested in something. As a woman, if you do that, you're often perceived as being rude or not being a team player. And so I want to talk about in this video about how these kind of symptoms show up different for women and men, and how basically our society kind of puts women and men into different boxes, and that's why women struggle so hard to find an ADHD diagnosis. I did realize, like, I have to live basically the rest of my life in this body with this brain. So in the past couple of years, I've really been taking my health and my mental health seriously, trying to basically age as gracefully as possible, not just like physically, but like with my body, my mental health issues. And so one of the reasons why I finally went back to the doctor to kind of get an assessment is because I had a little bit of a mental breakdown back in March. So in March, I was feeling super depressed, feeling awful, did not want to continue on, was just like over it. And I finally said, I have got to get some kind of doctor to listen to me because I feel like I just can't do this anymore. This is not the first time I've felt like this, and I don't think it will be the last time. And so that's what kind of led me to find that doctor that finally was able to work with me. Now, as far as ADHD symptoms, I've had this since childhood. When I was a kid in school, I would constantly get in trouble, but I didn't get in trouble for like cool things. I got in trouble for like reading ahead, in trouble for like reading a book I wanted to read while my teacher was lecturing. I read through like the entire series of Unfortunate Events books while my teacher was talking, and I think at one point she just gave up. She's like, I don't know what to do with this student. She's obviously like not interested in the lecture. And I would even have teachers call me out and be like, I know you already finished your work, but that doesn't mean that you don't get to, follow along with the class. And so there was this constant theme of like, yes, she is intelligent, but she does not, follow this pattern that we have. And so for school, it was really difficult for me all the way through like first grade and kindergarten. I remember being ahead of everyone in school and thinking like, oh my God, I'm so bored. It wasn't like I'm too smart for this. It was just like are we gonna do anything else today? I don't have anything to stimulate my brain. And I knew that something was wrong even back then. Another thing that I learned about my ADHD back when I was a kid is that if I was interested in a subject, buddy, I could do a deep dive. Like, I would get completely obsessed with it. And I think that's what led me to become like a small business owner, because since I was in like elementary school, I was running some type of small business. And in high school, I became known as the candy girl because I ran a candy business basically like out of a little lunchbox. And it got to the point where teachers were coming to my locker to buy candy. And so I've always been like a pretty motivated person, but it just wasn't motivated to the things that I was like supposed to be doing. And when it got to the point where I went to college, I was just like, what is the point of this? I feel like this is a regurgitation of what we already did. And my entire like education has been something that I just had to like grit my teeth to get through. And I feel like when I graduated and I finally got done with school, I was like, oh my God, I can read the books I want to read. I can watch the YouTube content I want to watch. If I want to watch a 2-hour lecture on something, I can watch that, I can focus, but I can't do it if it's not something that I'm interested in. And so in school, I really struggled. Transitioning to work, y'all, I have never really had a job. I am 29 years old, and the most that I've ever worked for anyone else was 3 weeks, and then I quit because I didn't want to go where someone told me to go when someone told me to go there. And it's not to say that I don't have work ethic. I have literally paid off everything I have, my house, my car, everything, completely debt-free, completely self-employed. But it's just like I chose my way to do my employment, to run my business. And I feel like looking at this now, it's like, yeah, it's kind of obvious that you had ADHD. Like you didn't even try to get a job after college. You didn't try to fit into the mold that other people made for you. Well-meaning people were offering me like positions, or they're like, so-and-so is really looking for someone like you. And I could definitely like tell them about you. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Like I have the ick when it comes to a 9-to-5 job. And unlike when people are like, oh, I just get up and go, of course I don't want to go, I physically could not do that. And that's the difference between like having ADHD and just not wanting to do something. When you have ADHD, you can't force yourself to do it. Like there's no getting around it. Like I struggled so hard to just go to school. My last year of school, senior year, I think I missed over 50 days. And I still graduated with honors. I was doing the work, I just didn't want to be trapped there. And I still have this fear of like being trapped and like being forced to do something. And I think that that's just the way that my brain is wired. I read this thing that said ADHD isn't just about hyperactivity. It can also be like a state of constant mental restlessness. And if there was an album title for my life, Constant Mental Restlessness would actually be like a really good title for me, because I just can't stop thinking. Genuinely, I think way too much. I'm an overthinker, over planner, and it's to the point where it was starting to like impede my life enjoyment. I think that's why women don't often get diagnosed with ADHD, because they're like, oh, she's just type A, or oh, she's just high strung, or she's just this, or she's just that. And they put us into those boxes where with a man, if he wasn't performing all of his duties or all of his tasks, they'd be like, oh, we need to help him. What can we do to help him? And so for women, we're just kind of being told like, oh, she just doesn't have it together. And so I think that that's a little bit of the patriarchy that's coming into play there. But I do think there's a significant difference in how ADHD shows up for a woman versus how it shows up for a man. Another ADHD symptom that I felt like I had was just not remembering anything. I have to set up my house in order to work for my brain, because I will have to put like little sticky notes everywhere. If I'm leaving the house and I need to take something with me, I have to put a sticky note on the door that says like, make sure you bring whatever object it is. If I am doing something the next day, for instance, like if I know that I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow and I know about this, I know today I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I need to go to it, I will forget. I have to set like 40 alarms on my phone to tell me to go to the doctor's appointment that I already know about. But when it gets like 3 o'clock and it's time for me to be there, I can be completely lost in an activity to the point where I will skip the appointment. And so that's happened to me so many times that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to come up with some other system to remember this. And so that's where the alarm clocks on my phone come in. That's where the sticky notes come in. That's where the weekly planning comes in, the monthly planning. It does seem like somebody who has it together and who has all their plans made, but it's just really a coping mechanism for trying to get my life together and not miss anything that I'm supposed to be doing. I do think ADHD runs in my family. Just talking to my mom and my aunt, you can kind of tell that their brain jumps from thought to thought. My mom actually lost our Christmas ham one year because she put it in the cabinet instead of putting it in the fridge. And it was just one of those things where she was probably just in a hurry trying to get everything put away. And so on Christmas Day, we literally could not find the ham that we were gonna cook. And we were freaking out, looking for it everywhere. And I just happened to say like, well, did you put it in a cabinet perchance? Because, you know, you might've been in a hurry and thought it was like a different kind of grocery item. And lo and behold, we found the Christmas ham in the cabinet. There's also been a lot of like doors left open on my car, projects that are halfway done. I might have started taking the garbage out but not finished the task. A lot of things that started but did not finish, if that makes any sense. I also have a really hard time sitting down and being still, and I have a hard time doing one thing for a long time. So the reason that I've ran so many different businesses is not because like I like from jumping from thing to thing. It's that when I'm no longer in that building phase and learning phase, my brain doesn't enjoy it anymore. And so I've tried to come up with new ways to enjoy that, but it has been difficult over the years. I wanted to read you guys some of the ADHD symptoms in case you might relate to this. So carelessness and lack of attention to detail, continually starting new tasks before finishing old ones. Ooh, that's me. Poor organizational skills. See, that's not really me, but I have to come up with like crazy organization strategies in order to get everything to work. Inability to focus or prioritize, low frustration tolerance, frequent mood swings, problems following through and completing tasks, hot temper, trouble coping with stress. So I would say that I have 80% of those. Even the temper and the basically not able to regulate myself when I get upset about something, feeling like if I have a problem that it's just like this huge problem, it's blown out of proportion, it's bigger than it is, and I can eventually calm myself down, but I get really upset in the moment about things. So part 2 of this 3-act play would be finding a doctor to finally diagnose me. This was the most difficult part of having ADHD as an adult woman. It's finding someone to take you serious, getting the referrals you need to get, to see the doctor you need to see, to get the medication you need. And it was just this whole thing that I feel like I've tried multiple times. I knew something was wrong with me. I've had every kind of lab work done. I felt tired all day. I felt exhausted. I felt emotionally drained. I knew something wasn't right. And ADHD just made sense after a while. I started seeing all of these things like on YouTube and TikTok, or like, if you have XYZ, you probably have ADHD that's been untreated for a long time. And so after I had the mental breakdown in March, I finally got that referral to see a physician that specializes in this kind of treatment in May. So 2 more months went by before I was finally able to get that treatment. So I found this place that specializes in like mental health issues, and I went to her and I said, I think I have ADHD, and I'm pretty sure that I've been, depressed and anxious for the last 10 years. I have super low energy, and I just feel like I can't do my life. She gave me an ADHD assessment that day, and she's like, yeah, you're definitely ADHD. Like, you scored like high on every single thing that you were supposed to score high on. Basically every symptom that was like related to ADHD, it was like a extremely yes instead of an extremely no, or extremely unlikely. And so just that day, I had no medication, I had no hope. And after that day of getting diagnosed, I was like, oh my God, I finally have validation for the way that I have felt the last I guess my entire life. I didn't know that it wasn't normal to just not be able to participate in society to the point where you create your own business and create your own little way of life and completely isolate yourself to where you don't have to kind of follow the rules of the world. And even now, it's really funny because my boyfriend and I will go out and do things, and he'll be like, oh, well, we don't need to do that or don't need to do this. And I'll be like, I don't care. I'll do whatever I want, whenever I want, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, it doesn't break the law. And even sometimes I'm like, well, that law doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to follow it. So I've definitely been always more of a think for yourself type of person. And so taking this assessment and learning why my brain works the way it does was immediately helpful for me. Even just not having medicine, not having any clue what was going to happen, I immediately felt better because I felt validated. And so if you are struggling and you don't have a diagnosis, I encourage you to kind of pursue it, because for me, I felt like maybe it was too late. And I was like, you're only 29. You have to live possibly 40 or 50 more years in this body. And it doesn't mean that I'll always be medicated, but it does mean that I'll be able to understand and better cope with some of the symptoms that I do have. Before I was able to get that diagnosis, I had asked several of my primary care doctors about it. I had said, hey, I think I have ADHD. Do you know any way that I could possibly get tested? And they would just kind of ramble on for about a minute about how it's hard to diagnose adults, and, it's definitely something that shows up for kids, and, blah, blah, blah. There was always some BS reason why they couldn't, test me or find a way to test me. And I do think a lot of it is the stigma that comes with the type of medication for ADHD being more like upper type of medication. But I needed an upper. Like I am so freaking tired all the time. Like I just remember like it would be 1 or 2 o'clock and I had done a lot of the things that I needed to do for my business, and I would go lay down at like 1 or 2 o'clock. Like I was so tired. I was like, I just can't do anything else today. I can't go work out. I can't cook supper. I can't go wash my car. I can't do any of the other adulting things that I need to do because I'm completely exhausted from having done those few tasks in the morning. So I just want to highlight that ADHD is not a childhood disorder. It is something that sometimes is discovered in childhood because of behavioral issues that a child may have, but it is not something that goes away when you grow up. It is something that basically, if you can treat it in childhood, you may develop better coping skills and you may develop like more neuroplasticity to where you're like, okay, I know when this happens, then I have to do that. Getting diagnosed as an adult is just as valid as getting diagnosed when you're 8 years old and you can't sit still in a classroom. So I just want to say that ADHD is not something to brush off if you are an adult. There's a chance that if you're like me, you thought, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do what everyone else is doing? Why is this so hard? And I felt pretty worthless for a long time. I was like, I don't understand. Like, what is it that I'm not seeing? What productivity hack am I not using? I literally read like hundreds of self-help books in an attempt to fix this problem that was just a problem that I was going to have to live with forever. And so I want to talk about medication. I want to talk about what I've been trying. I'm going to briefly talk about kind of what my doctor put me on to start out with. I will do a longer video about my first month on the stimulant Vyvanse because that has been a game changer for me. But at first, my doctor just wanted to get me on Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin is something that is often combined with an ADHD medication because it helps with the depression symptoms. I was previously on Buspirone or Buspar, a low dose of that once a day for anxiety, but I didn't really feel like I had a ton of anxiety. I felt just off. And so we started on the Wellbutrin. I did 150 milligrams of that, and then I did that for a month, and then I switched to 300 milligrams, and I did that for another month. And then for my 3rd month of treatment, she asked me if I wanted to try some ADHD specific medications, and I was like, yes, baby, sign me up. So we started with Concerta for 1 week. That led me to have a horrible crash like about 6 hours after I took it, and that crash was happening like every day. And I was like, I can't take this medicine. This is not working for me. Like I would feel emotionally like upset. I was feeling like crazy after the 6-hour mark, and it just wasn't the right drug for me. So then at that point, she switched me to the lowest dose of Vyvanse, 20 milligrams. And I have been taking the Vyvanse for almost a month now, and it has really made a difference in my energy levels, in my focus, in my ability to enjoy life. I've been exercising more. I've been doing more of the things that I want to do. I always write out my monthly goals, and this month I actually had like almost all of those goal markers met by like halfway through the month. So that just tells me right there that like those goals for me, that was a month's worth of goals like in my mind for my capabilities. But after half of that time with my medicine, I was able to do all of it. So I feel like that's very telling about how this medicine affects someone with ADHD. So the extra energy has been nice, but the energy is not really what I was concerned about. It was just not being completely exhausted at the end of the day. And since I've started this medicine, I noticed that it tends to wear off like around 7 or 8 p.m., which is typically when I want to get ready for bed anyways. But now, instead of wanting to go to bed at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I can make it through the day, do all kind of things that I want to do, things that I need to do, just kind of like life administration things such as like making a phone call or handling a bill or something like that. I would put that stuff off for a long time. I would be like, ugh, I just can't bring myself to make this call or to reply to this email or to, submit this or that or renew my tag. All of those little things in life that we have to do as adults, it just seemed like a tremendous effort for me to get it done. And I know you guys only see a portion of me because you watch what I want you to see. I literally edit the video to show you what I want you to see. So when you watch YouTube or when you watch someone, you're only seeing like part of their life. So while it may seem like I have things together, there are times when it is a complete train wreck over here at my house. So this medication has completely transformed my ability to think clearly throughout the day, to stay focused, to stay motivated, and my depression is gone. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but like I was depressed because I couldn't function, and now that I can function, I'm not depressed. I'm not saying that I'm never gonna not be depressed again. Depression for me has come in waves. Since I was 13, I would get these periods of deep depression, and I would basically have to claw my way out of it. But since being on this medicine, I have really felt like this is it. Like, I don't feel like this is something that is going to be a short-term thing for me. I know I've definitely explored a lot of things here in terms of health, but for my ADHD, it's just made such a difference in being validated, being confirmed in what you thought all along. And I just look back to that kid in the classroom who wanted to read her own book about the subject that she was interested in. At that point, there wasn't really anything you could do with really smart kids, so they put us in gifted class, which I feel like was just a place where you put all the kids that you don't really know what to do with, because I was like, what are we even doing here? I don't feel like we're doing anything else that we're not doing in the regular class. But, you know, at that point, I was like, you know, maybe I'm a little different. Just to have that confirmation has been really nice for me as an adult, because I always wondered, like, I think I'm a little different. Like, I was like, is there something wrong with me? Like, I don't know. Like, if you guys can relate, just let me know in the comments. But like, I just knew that I wasn't built like everybody else. Like, I wasn't saying that I was above it or anything like that. I just knew that like my path in life was going to be very different from what it was supposed to be. And I still have a lot of blocks up for anything that anyone says, like, oh, you got to do this and then you do this, like college, corporate world, move up, you know, whatever, retirement plan. Like, I don't care about any of that. I don't want a career. I don't want anything like that. I just want to make enough money to be happy and to be self-sufficient and be left alone. That's really all I want. And I know that that's not really like very aspirational, but I just want to exist freely. Like, I don't want to my whole entire life to be about work or struggling or, you know, improving constantly. It's been something that in my early 20s, I struggled so much because I was like, why am I not better? Why am I not richer? Why am I not this or that? And so growing up and realizing like, oh, that stuff's not really important. Like, when you die, nobody's going to care about what you had or anything like that. They're only going to care about, you know, the memories that you have with them and how they affected your life positively. And so I'm hoping that this medicine can basically just make me more me. It can make me a version of me that I actually can work with, and that I'm not forcing her to do everything throughout the day. And so I hope that basically hearing about the childhood stuff, the current stuff, and getting diagnosed and the medicines has helped you in some way. It's really hard for me to talk about this publicly, but I feel like it could help somebody, so that's why I wanted to put it out there. Especially for women, we tend to just say, oh, well, you know, I'll look at that next year, or I'll think about that if it's still there. Make time for yourself. Even if you're a mom, even if you're married, just make time for you and try to get a doctor that will listen to you, because this may be a game changer for you. This could change the course of the rest of your life, but you'll never know if you don't try to find out. I do think this is just the beginning for me. I've seen changes in myself in terms of like thought patterns and what I feel like I may be capable of. And so I'm really excited to see how this goes, especially with being medicated. And right now I'm only on these lower doses of medication. So I will post a video after being on Vyvanse for a full month just to tell you like how it went and how it's going and the symptoms and things like that. But I appreciate you guys so much for listening to this. I know this was a long video, but I wanted to touch on all the aspects of it because it's just something that I feel like I could not find any information on this subject. Getting diagnosed as a woman almost in your late 20s is just something that doesn't really get talked about. So if this helped you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more if you want to hear about the future of my ADHD journey. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care.